Hey everyone, it's Dino Cotton, and
Ryan Fritchie.
We're here recording our first podcast episode.
Basically locked in a closet.
We are. We're in the Resio office right now, and it is a small room, but you know what? We get a lot done. That's all we need is a computer and a phone, right? And some paper to scribble on.
And just our ideas. I think a lot of this will be just our ideas. Whether it makes sense or not, I don't know. But
that's the whole purpose of the podcast, is to the both of us wanted to talk about recruiting, talk about technology in the industry, specifically recruiting technology.
Yeah, and it's you might ask what makes us voices of expertise in this field, and maybe we're not. I think we've both just been doing it for a long time, and you learn a lot of lessons. You learn what works, you learn what doesn't work, and as you, I think, start to share that knowledge, and then it works for other people, you start to realize, well, maybe this is, maybe these are some good techniques.
Yeah, I mean, I brought Ryan into the recruiting business. So I actually started, my mother has her own staffing company, and she recruits legal, and Sonia Cotton Associates. And I started when I was in college working for her, and she had me cold call through resumes and stuff like that. And then I got out working for her and went to go work for another company, get experience. And, then I kind of got in more into technology. And then I worked for a company and brought Ryan in, and he was...
Well, it's funny because we met through very competitive adult kickball, so we'll talk more about that later. But I remember asking Dino several times what he did, and every time he would explain it to me, and I would have no idea what he was talking about. And the thing is, I feel like I'm a pretty smart person, but I didn't get what he was talking about, and I don't think you fully understand this idea of recruiting until you've done it for a while.
Temp schlepper was not a good description.
Yeah, human trafficker. Not what I thought it was.
Hunter of heads. No.
Headhunter is like my least favorite word in this industry.
Is it? It kind of is a little offensive sometimes.
Yeah, I get offended when
sometimes
I hear it.
I think it's cool because it sounds cool, but then I'm like, wait, actually, I feel like I'm offended by that comment. But I don't generally get offended. So
yeah, and it was funny. I learned it was randomly. I'll never forget where I was, but I got a text from Dino, and he said, "Do you know anyone who wants to be an IT recruiter?" And I was in advertising sales for a long time, and I was so burnt out. I had no idea what that meant or what that entailed, but I just said, "Yep, I do." That's it, and that's really how Dino got me into this business. And it's been a long
And then Ryan got really good, and he became like one of our top, basically software development recruiters. He had built a niche with Java development, and he was kind of the go-to guy for that. And then we, much like staffing, unfortunately, I feel like this happens a lot in staffing. Is the turnover rate in staffing agencies is high, and maybe it's because of how most staffing agencies manage their recruiters or their salespeople. But obviously, this environment, which we don't have to go into the detail of the name of the company at this current point in time, maybe wasn't maybe it was par for course, right? Maybe it was very average for staffing agencies, but we both kind of moved on to greener pastures after that one. Yeah,
it's funny because I've been at a very large staffing company. I've been at smaller companies. I'm kind of at a mid-level company now. And one thing I've seen that's been consistent is it doesn't really matter how big of a training notebook you have or what kind of programs you have. People learn how to recruit by doing very basic things, but doing them very well. And it really isn't rocket science. I mean, I used to tell people when they asked me what I did or how you were good at what you did, I said, if you can work hard and talk to people, to me, those are the most basic things. Now, there's a lot of things along the way that you can do to be better at it. I think we'll talk about and touch on those things. But what we do is, it's not really advanced molecular,
No.
Biochemistry.
No, it's not. So Ryan works for Signature Consultants. Is that right? Signature?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And so we don't actually work together, but we're friends and we trust each other. And so we like to do collaboration efforts, if we will, together. So that's where this comes in. This idea, Ryan's got the podcast equipment. I mean, he bought this podcast equipment to do some sports podcasting back in the day. But I had an idea. I wanted to write a book basically on recruiting. Which would almost kind of be like something for training, called The Book on Recruiting. And a lot of the content that we're going to talk about is a lot of the stuff that we have just jotted down.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, Dino would talk to me about this book that he was thinking of, and I would talk to him about really a training program to put together for corporations to help with their recruiting. Because, don't get me wrong, I mean, my job right now is really stealing business from internal corporate recruiters. But long term, I'm thinking, gosh, we could really help companies save a lot of money by not using companies like the company I work for if their recruiters really understood the importance of recruiting, and really that it is an art and it's a science and there's a lot that goes into it.
Well, the crappy part about it is like, and you think about how big the recruiting industry is globally. It's like $1.5 trillion a year globally. I used to work for Manpower, a subsidiary of Manpower called Manpower Professional, which is now called Experis. But back when I was working for them, like 2008 to 2009, they were making $26 billion a year as Manpower corporate. And that's a lot of money for staffing, for contingent labor and direct hire and all the elements that go into it. But people don't really think about it. They don't think about how big recruiting is on a global scale. And the thing is there's literally hardly any content out there. I always try to find books to read, podcasts to listen to about recruiting.
Yeah, and I mean, to touch on that, I mean, I started at a staffing company, the IT arm of one of the largest staffing companies in the world, the Adecco Group, and I knew nothing about it. There's no degrees in school for it. I mean, you can go to school to be a music major or a women's studies major, but for something that's so big and brings in so much money, there's nothing out there that you're.
There is absolutely no, and if you're listening to this and you're not in recruiting, there is absolutely no barrier to entry whatsoever into the recruiting industry.
You fall into it somehow.
It's like real estate or Uber. You just do it. You just show up.
Well, it's funny because ASU used to have a real estate program. Like, that was something you could go to school for. It's funny to me because I think it's such an essential part of just the business world. Every company that I know of uses recruiters or recruiting in some fashion, yet there's nothing out there that you say, you know what, this is what I want to do out of high school. There's nothing there for you.
It's crazy. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing is, right? You get out of school, you're a psychology major, you're a business major, you're marketing, and then you go and you're like, oh, what am I going to get a job in? Well, you're not going to become a psychologist, probably. So then you dig around, unless you get your master's degree, you probably get out and you get a sales job somewhere. And then maybe you get like a recruiter who recruits for recruiters. That's what happened to me. I got a job at Aerotech out of school. But, you think about it on a global scale. My wife, Christina, and I, on our honeymoon, we went to Peru. And when we were in Peru, we flew up to Cusco and then got on a train to go from a place called Ollantaytambo, and then took a train, the Hiram Bingham train, to Machu Picchu. Okay, so we were in the Andes Mountains, and we were on a train passing by like the Matterhorn Mountains in the Andes, which was incredible, out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, and up comes a guy to punch our ticket. He's got a badge, and it says whatever his name is, I don't know. And on his badge, it says Manpower. I mean, the guy literally works for Manpower in the mountains of Peru on the way to Machu Picchu, and he's a contingent Manpower staff employee in that area. I mean, that's the thing, is people don't think about it, though, right? Everyone gets all hopped up and excited about Apple or Tesla or these other companies that have a little bit more of a sexy appeal to them, but they don't really realize that staffing or recruiting is every aspect of their life.
I mean, even my company now, we supply a lot of contractors to Google, but everyone thinks how sexy it is to work at Google. Well, guess who found them? I found them. We're putting those people there, and I think there's a sexiness to that element once you break past all the people you deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I think there's a lot of, and I firmly believe this, I think if there's a lot of life lessons that can help improve your life, whether it's starting a business or working with people or relationships, that you can learn from recruiting basics and lessons that will help you be successful in recruiting, will help you be successful in life.
You know what? I always give this analogy to people all the time about recruiting and comparing what recruiting is like to things out there in the world. And I always say recruiting or the job hunt, the process, is like dating. I just had a call earlier with a candidate, and he was interviewing for a position. He's, for a pretty high level role, and he said that let's just say hiring manager had asked him, well, who are you interviewing with right now? Like, what kind of irons in the fire do you have? And what that really turns into is, it's like, who's my competition?
Yeah.
It's like, and you flip that to dating, it's like you're going on a date with, like, how many people are you currently in a relationship with?
Who am I up against?
Yeah. Who am I up against right now?
What do I need to do better than the person that's
right? And there's so many aspects that are very similar. So maybe, just maybe, if you listen to this podcast, you'll get way better.
You'll find the love of your life. That's what we're guaranteeing you.
You
right
might
now.
find the love of your life.
Well, it's funny that we didn't even talk about this, but Dino and I was training a new recruiter yesterday, and we're sitting in an office, and I relate recruiting to dating. I said, look, you're looking for... I said, what happens if you go on a date with a guy and he orders 3 beers right off the bat? Red flag, right? Right. And then if he talks about himself the whole time, you learn to identify red flags.
So you're saying that talking about yourself is a red flag?
If that's all you do,
that's most people want to do.
We're both in trouble then, if that's the case. When Dino and I get together, it's just nonstop who can one up the other person. but along with red flags and finding ways to overcome those things before they become a problem, it's also making commitments with people. And I firmly believe that in recruiting, it's not just, hey, I'm going to sling you a bunch of stuff, and if you don't give me something in return, everything's going to fly smoothly, because it's not. It's about give and take. And that's one thing I've learned about how to manage managers, hiring managers, or candidates. It's a give and take. It's like I have to make sure they're giving me commitments as well as me giving them in return, and it makes it a little bit easier throughout the process.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years ago, I had a guy I was interviewing. I was interviewing for sales people. Let me tell you, that's the worst. By the way, coming from salespeople, well, it's just generally very arrogant, right? Like everyone's the best salesperson on the planet, right? But this guy I had lunch with, he looked great, was great on paper, had really great skills, and the guy, we got together, had lunch, sat there, and I started looking, and I go, this guy is I'm looking at the teeth, I'm looking at the pants, the fingers. The marks on the face. The guy, I want to say the guy might have been addicted to meth. He might have been a meth addict. I mean, I don't know any meth addicts, but this guy struck me as that. So here's the flip, right? So do I take this candidate and send him to my customer? No, but I bought the guy lunch, right? And I sat there and I had to deal with buying this guy, food and listening to him talk and seeing him shake and stuff like that. Like he was. A lot of scratching. He was a lot of scratching. He looked like he was in a hurry to get out of there, and But anyway, that's the thing you see, right? You see everything. You see all walks of life in this type of business. But
I think to your point, maybe you weren't going this route. I don't know. I'm jumping in here, but this business is a people business, and like Dino said earlier, you're not going to really know until you meet some of these people in person, but. What you can dissect, what you can learn, what you can understand about people, the more you can do that, the better. And I think the better it's going to make you in this business and just in general. But this all revolves around the fact that we're dealing with people every day, and they're crazy sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're unpredictable. Sometimes they put on a front. But it's being able to see through those things, read through those things sometimes, and just select the best candidate. Not only is going to make it's a good fit for the role, but it's going to help you with your clients or the companies that you're working with, because it's all about reputation too.
Yeah. This business, I was having a coffee. So by the way, I just want to let you know that I'm generally eating or drinking something while I'm doing any kind of work whatsoever.
I was just waiting how long we had to wait for it to be acceptable to start eating something or drinking. Right.
But even like the other day, I had a coffee. I was having a coffee with a guy and kind of breakfast. And then the other day I was having a lunch with somebody. So that's a common thing. So unfortunately, I'm not thin.
Well, I'm staring at a box of Barrow's Pizza.
I did order a box of Barrow's Pizza here today, and you heard me earlier. I was finishing off the end of this venti ice water from Starbucks off my coffee this morning. But so the industry that we're in basically has no barrier to entry, like we talked about, right? It's real estate agents, you have people get into recruiting. And sometimes I'll tell you, I saw the other day, I saw a guy that I know.